The Los Angeles Rams are 2-0 this season. Find out what we think about Hard Knocks episode this week and more coming up next.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
We always start with a little shoulder and head bob. This time I'm not going to say St. Louis Rams. I'm only going to say Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah.
Since we're going back to Cali.
That's right. Whoop-de-whoop. Inglewood. Up to no good.
Up to no good. Hey guys, we are here recapping another fantastic episode of Hard Knocks. We are in season 11, episode 3, 2-0 this season so far. They're going to see the Denver Broncos next week. Going to be a great game. But before we get to that, we've got to talk about this week's episode. My name is Lyndsey Wegner. You guys can tweet me at Lyndsey Wegner. And tonight I'm joined by Joe Doyle.
How's it going, guys?
And Joe, where can they tweet you?
You guys can tweet me at JoJo Doyle. So nice. I put it in twice.
We've got I've got a lovely fan that's always chatting with us and talking to us. Thank you for joining us. I think it's Nelbin. Thank you for chatting with us. We love talking to you. And you guys make sure that you continue to tweet us. Go on iTunes, rate us 5 stars, leave your Twitter handle in there because we are going to be doing a giveaway at the end of season episode 5. We're going to give away, we've got a jersey, hoodie thing.
It's super cool,
It's super cool. We've got a signed Vince Ferragamo picture, and we've got a license plate holder, and we want to give these to you guys. So tweet us, comment on YouTube, find us on iTunes, rate us 5 stars, leave your Twitter handle in there, talk to us, follow us.
That's right.
On Twitter.
Every interaction will get you a name in the hat when we pull at the end of the season. So tweet a lot.
I want you guys to win stuff.
Yeah. And I want to hear what you guys have to say about the show and about this show and about Hard Knocks and football.
And Joe, tell me what you thought about this week's episode. We had differing opinions this week.
We
I like
do.
it.
This week, a little bit differing opinions. I don't know if I really liked this episode or not. I liked all the football stuff, but it was still felt a little disjointed from here and there. I don't know if I want to hear about tank tops anymore. I think I got enough of tank tops. Some of the stories were interesting. Maybe it was just because the stories that they did share this week were so incredibly polarizing that it wasn't about football. It was about life, of a football player. And I thought that was interesting, but not necessarily what I was looking for when I got on the TV, turned on HBO and watched the show.
Did you watch Playmakers when it was on?
I did not, no.
I don't know if you guys watch Playmakers, but I saw the series a couple years ago and was just in love with it. The insider perspective, not only into the game, but into their lives and everything, and knowing that it was kind of based loosely on a few NFL players was really, really interesting. And I mean, it was canceled for a reason because it was hitting too close to home and they didn't want all of that stuff out there. So I recommend you to see it just because it's such a great show, and since you love football as much as I do, and like you said, I think this week's episode kind of concentrated a little bit on their lives as well outside of football, and we do get to see them on their days off and everything, and get a little bit into their family. But I actually liked it. I thought it was nice to get a little bit more in depth and not see 50 players' names scroll across throughout the episode and literally take me 2 hours to watch the episode because I'm writing down the position and the name, even though I already know it, just to have it here in case I need to glance at something. It was nicer to get a little bit more information about specific people and kind of go back and research about the coaches or about the players and get into their lives a little bit deeper than just the surface level. So I liked that.
Yeah. No, I definitely could see how that would. I mean, it's interesting. That thing is interesting. I think it's kind of like when you go to see a movie and you're expecting to be one type of movie, but then it totally isn't. It's still good, but it wasn't what I was expecting, and so it kind of threw me off for a little bit.
Well, the first 2 episodes were so opposite of this week's episode that we'll see how maybe episode 4 is and see if it's more about the story. But, I mean, we've got cuts coming up this week.
That's what I'm looking forward to. That changes the dynamic totally.
We'll also get less people to concentrate on anyway. But the episode opened with Ethan Westbrook, a defensive tackle who's got a face tattoo. And Joe and I were talking earlier, and he's like, you know, we open the show every week, or in that first few minutes of the show, they're just not making football players look good.
No, they make them look so dumb, and they're not dumb. They're all went to college, or most of them went to college, like, so they have education. But I mean, yes, I could totally see how a face tattoo would be a good reminder that you don't want to have to go, you know, back to work at Toys R Us. I wouldn't want to go back to work at Toys R Us either. But with the irony of laugh now, cry later on your face, that's exactly what you're going to do in 20 years. Right now, you're like, nah, yeah, I don't want to go back to Toys R Us. And then in 20 years, you're going to cry and be like, how in the world did I put this on my face?
I mean, I have a couple tattoos myself, and I see tattoos, though, and then I look at some of my own, and I'm like, well, yeah, that was an 18-year-old decision that I made.
Right.
You know, and I was young, but it's also coverable. When it's on your face for the whole world to see,
You can't.
and not just in the game. You know, I hadn't heard of this guy before, so any random person walking down the street isn't going to know him, or any person that he comes in contact with isn't going to go, oh, you're Ethan Westbrook. You're a football player for the Rams. They're not going to know who he is.
No, I mean, like, okay, you know what? I do appreciate the fact that it wasn't like a teardrop or anything like
sure.
that. Like, but, and you know, it had a little bit of, you know, creativity to it. But come on, man. Like, your face, like,
Your bicep, your
Yeah.
neck, whatever it is, but right on your cheek.
the average like career in the NFL spans 3 to 4 years after that first initial contract, if players even make it to negotiating the next contract. And so that's a really small window to enjoy this face tattoo before you're going to have to. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, going to do stuff out of football.
No.
Not at all. But I mean, how are you going to, you know, I'm not going to go buy a car from someone with a face tattoo. I'm not going to go, you know, like, I don't know why I just picked used car salesman, but you know, like, but you know what I mean? Like, that's, you are out of a lot of running, you know, for jobs.
having
a face
that.
tattoo.
My dad, I have love on my wrist.
That's lovely.
And my dad said to me, he goes, what do you think the cashier at the grocery store is going to think of when they see that? And I go, Dad, I hope that they look at me and that reminds them of something in their life that they love.
Yeah.
It's not like I have a naked lady on my arm.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. But I'm like, I hope that that reminds them of something nice to think about. It's not laugh now, cry later.
Right. I mean, and that's so subtle. Like, I mean, I'm sure that I've seen that before, but I totally forgot that you had that until you brought it up. And you know what? I thought about something lovely that I loved in my life.
Oh, see, and it works. And we also had Waffle yelling at him, telling him to keep his eyes lower. I also felt the coaches are really digging into the guys this week. They're showing it a little bit more than they did, at least in the last couple weeks, between Waffle and Coach Greg Williams.
Yes. And Singletary.
I mean, you got it. They have to be strong and they have to get used to this. This is what's going to happen. This is the real world. I was scared.
Yeah, well, they got one more week to, you know, do what they came to do or get out. And now with cuts looming, I'm sure that these coaches, the same thing. I got one more week to draw out every drop of talent that I can from this player, because they all want them to succeed. You know, they constantly say that as motivators, as, you know, like as coaches, you want every one of those players to excel. And your job is to get them to perform to the top of their ability. And so if it takes a little bit of cussing and a little bit of paper thrown in your face to get those pads low and really jump off the ball, then you got to do what you got to do.
But then you also get to see the softer side, which we did with Coach Fisher and Paul McRoberts, the rookie wide receiver,
Yes.
who on August 1st lost his stepbrother in a shooting. And I mean, they're telling him it's okay to cry. He has to grieve, and all the coaches are coming in and offering support. And that was, I mean, obviously, you know you're going to do that. This is your teammate. This is your player. This is family at this point. And that's nice to see, too.
Yeah, it is. And especially everything that's going through his head. You know, he's an undrafted rookie, and he's trying to make the team. I guess, you know, like he said that he found out on Facebook because his his family didn't want him to distract him, which... That, I mean, a death in the family is so incredibly hard. And so I can imagine the different things of, okay, well, he's trying to make it. We don't want to distract him. But at the same time, I mean, that's something that you got to know about as soon as possible. And
I
so,
agree.
yeah, that was really interesting. But it was nice to see the coaches step up. There was no talk of, don't worry about it. Like, even though cuts are coming up, this is beyond cuts. This is it's just football, and this is something greater.
Deal with it. You can deal with this. It's okay.
Yeah.
We see a little bit of, Tavon Austin. We're getting the fact that he's definitely a fun, lively guy. I was joking around. He was giving Fisher crap for knocking food out of his hand.
Yeah.
I mean, I would. The scene from Friends where Joey's like, Joey doesn't share food.
I remember
is
that
kind of
one.
like me.
Yeah.
So I would feel the same way. And then he goes, and you're married? I ought to kick your butt for that too.
That was pretty funny.
It's nice to see them joking around a little bit and enjoying practice. Who's not really enjoying practice though a whole lot, it seems like, is Todd Gurley,
No.
who got to go in at least in this last game and play a couple snaps and get a touchdown.
Right. He
Great.
He was great. He looked in great form.
But they're keeping him out of out of the games, kind of out of practice. Don't want him getting hit.
No, not
at
at all.
I
He's
know
a
this
little
came
China
up.
doll. Yeah, they pretty much did everything but put him in a red jersey.
Well, yeah, exactly. He's basically playing like the quarterback at this point. I mean, especially if he's going to get over 300 touches this season, which he's going to get. He's a beast, and he's definitely something that all the analysts are talking about in fantasy as this huge player coming in. They keep certain players. When the Packers were in the Super Bowl, they kept Charles Woodson out because he had turf toe, and he ended up getting hurt in that Super Bowl game later on. Shoulder, I believe it was a shoulder injury, but they kept him out of practices completely and just let him play games.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, the best ability that anyone can have, especially in fantasy football, is availability. And if I'm going to be drafting Todd Gurley, I'm going to be drafting him early. And so I would like him to stay as healthy as possible, because football is my passion. I know it is yours too. And we know all the players and teams, their strengths and weaknesses. And now, you know what? We can put this knowledge to the test and play for our shot at $1 million for the top prize on DraftKings.com. Yeah, it's just part of the $5 million in total prizes they're dueling out this Week 1 contest. DraftKings.com is the destination for 1 week fantasy football. 1 week fantasy means no season-long commitments. Play whenever you want with the players you want. Just pick your contest, draft your players, and follow your team live. Renew old rivalries by challenging friends and family in a private league, or prove you're the superior GM. Or join an existing league and go head-to-head with friends, coworkers, and fantasy players from across the country. Hurry to DraftKings.com now to choose your players, and you could seriously cash in Week 1. Use code BUZZ and play for free with your first deposit. That's code BUZZ to play for free for your share of $5 million in total prizes for this Week 1 contest, only at DraftKings.com. DraftKings.com. Eligibility restrictions may apply. See website for details,
Well, I'm just going to say last season, I called Devonta Freeman as going to be a great pickup, and he had a fantastic season.
He was monstrous.
And my roommate even said that the other day. He goes, remember when last season you called out Devonta Freeman? I was like, duh. Yeah.
You're like, yes, I did.
This season, you know who I'm feeling? I'm feeling Ezekiel Elliott.
Ooh, okay. He's got that line.
He's going to be, I don't know. I feel it.
He's got a good line to run behind.
Feeling it. I'm telling you guys right now. I'm gonna draft him. Also, something else with the whole keeping Gurley out of practice, we have to remember is that they've cut down on the number of full pad practices to protect the guys so that they are healthy for when the games start. But there's kind of this juxtaposition and question about, is it better to not have them play as many full pad practices and be healthy coming in, or are they not as in shape because they aren't having those practices? What do you think?
I think that I've heard a lot of players that are on both sides of it, but I kind of hear the players that want the more full practices. I'm kind of on that side of the ball, because you get more full pad practices, you get more contact, you can feel what it's like, you can be prepared to protect yourself a little bit more and get used to that kind of contact. You don't have as many practices, you're not as physically ready. Week 4, 5, and 6, I feel like that's when the players all are really starting to hit their stride, because they've been in the thick of it. They've had to recover and play again, and recover and play again, and their bodies have grown accustomed to that type of regeneration, for so to speak. You know what I mean? And so I think that more, but it's a fine line. More padded practices means more experience, more snaps, but you also could get dinged up.
I agree with you. I think that it's better for them to have more practices with the full pads, like you said. I think it's just better because then that is preparing them for more games, and that's going to happen in games. So you're better protected, so you know where to be. I just think it's better. And then keep those specific players maybe out of the fray a little bit more. Well,
they say you play like you practice. And so, be out there
you're not
in
getting
those
the
full
reps.
pads. Yeah, so if you're out those in full pads and you're going full bore, that's how you're going to play on the field. But if you can't really unleash, then how do they expect to turn up at the game?
Well, talk about turning up at the game. They turned up now at both games, came back after that huge deficit in the first game, which Fisher talks about right away off the bat. He says the energy coming into the game at the end of the game was great. It's the largest preseason U.S. attended game, which we knew and talked about last week.
Yeah, that was
with
enormous.
all the fans there.
Yeah.
And they just basically need to correct their mistakes and keep their mouths shut.
That's right. Now is not the time to talk. You need just to shut up and play ball.
Which we come back into Greg Williams, our defensive coordinator, yelling, screaming, and he makes a good point. And I had this conversation with my family in the past that he goes, nobody's supposed to holler at you anymore. Your mom and your dad, your colleges, they're disabling your future by not disciplining you or by not, telling you this is what happens. You get these kids now that feel entitled because nobody disciplined them. And I don't mean by physically disciplining them. I mean by having control of your child and your kids.
Yeah.
And these guys are coming in and this may be the first sense of discipline they're getting. It may not be. They could have heard the hooting and hollering their whole lives. But I do agree that sometimes I think the yelling can go too far, and with how crazy he is, not to mention, I wanted to bring up that he was also part of the whole Saints bounty scandal. This coach was.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if part of this kind of comes into play, that he's very, very aggressive.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the coach that he is. But because I was thinking, like, wait, isn't this the coach that was a part of that whole thing? And obviously you don't, with the whole scandal with the Saints, that was bad. I mean, people seriously were injured or could have been injured even worse because of his
Outlook
coaching
and
style.
coaching style. Yeah, that's true. I mean,
and now it's coming into this, so you're kind of seeing this yelling and this anger, and it's throughout the whole episode. They're really showing you that side of him. Once again, this is always any reality show that you watch, they can edit you. But we're seeing it happen. This may have been the only times he was caught yelling, but he's really
big time. And it's interesting to look at this because, like seeing a lot of different offensive, defensive coordinators throughout the league and how they play, with a lot of other Hard Knocks shows and other teams that I just, follow on my free time. It's interesting to see different coaching techniques. And I tell you what, it's that defense, it shows on the field. I mean, they play angry, they show up, they play for these guys. So, I feel like while it seems really harsh to like the average viewer, it produces results. And in the game of football, it sucks. And same kind of thing with Bountygate. It sucks to say it like this, but results are the only thing that matters.
the statistics.
It doesn't matter how you get the W, you just get the W.
Well, and we obviously see that they get to enjoy time off as well. And Hayes, our defensive end, got to go to Disneyland with his family. And Akeem Ayers, also linebacker, came with him. But before we get to that, once again, we're talking about how kind of stupid they make these guys.
Oh, man.
And he loves the ocean and water, but he said that his dog said they know more about space than they do the ocean.
I feel like they see this stuff they hear this stuff on the Discovery Channel or passing on the radio, and then they just spit it right back out, which is fine, but that's what it sounds like. That there's no basis from this knowledge, It's just regurgitation.
Yep. But they did have a fun time at Disneyland.
Yeah, oh,
It looked
yeah.
like they did. They rode some rides, looked a little sick, screamed, did the upside down rides. They had fun. And we saw a couple of the other guys, too. Who was it? The 2 guys that went bowling. Brandon Chubb and Benson Brown, both rookies, went bowling, and they were playing for push-ups.
Yeah, that I actually now I want to start playing for push-ups. I think that would be a fun thing to do. I might not go. I thought it might be kind of interesting per frame, like maybe 5 per frame. You know what I mean? You know, and then that way you could, by the end of the game, it's serious business. But I need to get in better shape. So hopefully I'm better at bowling than my opponent.
Bowling. And it was nice, too, to see that Rob Boris, the offensive coordinator's son, was playing for varsity, got to suit up for varsity.
I love that moment. Like seeing and the other coaches coming together and celebrating that. That was a special moment. I like that.
Well, and Jeff Fisher talking about Brandon Fisher being on the field during that game and how he got into coaching and was excited about it. It is nice to see that father-son thing, and no, there really aren't that many father-son duos out there, but this is one of them, and I like them. I really like Jeff Fisher. I always really liked the coaches.
Yeah, Jeff.
But I've always liked him. He's never been a coach that I've been like,
Oh, okay. Oh, you say you always liked Jeff Fisher.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought you
This
said.
is just making me like him more.
Oh yeah, no, that's true. Seeing that camaraderie. Jeff Fisher right now for me is still kind of just. My favorite coach out of this is definitely Waffle. He's my favorite one. Like I could watch him coach like crazy. I mean, Fisher's cool. He has to be more well-rounded and calm because he's the head coach. But for National Waffle Day like this, I think that we got to give a shout out to Waffle.
Is it National Waffle Day?
It is like the kind you eat. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it was funny because Johnny Hecker posted National Waffle Day and then some weird picture of Coach Waffle, and I thought that was pretty funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we also see Spruce, who's not practicing. He's nursing a leg injury from that first game. So that does leave Mick Roberts, right?
Yeah.
It leaves him and Austin Hill open for getting one of those wide receiver spots. Because a guy that's not playing and not at the practices and able to practice does not bode well for making the team later on, no matter how big a game you had. We talked about it last week. He's got to continue to do well in these preseason games in order to make the team. And having one great game is not going to secure that spot on the roster.
Yeah, all it will take is Austin Hill to have one great game, and then all of a sudden they're.
If he gets targeted.
Yeah, that's the thing. Reps are at a premium in preseason. And for these bubble players not to get one ball even targeted and thrown to them, like that's bad news. He needs to flash again in practice and get these quarterbacks trust, or else he's gonna be out the door.
Well, what I really like seeing was defensive end Eugene Sims doing that pass catching drill.
Yes.
10 catches with one hand. It was his right hand.
Yeah.
Right? It was his right hand.
Yeah, it was his right. Yeah.
I mean, fantastic. They're going to pull him. This was my point. I think I said this 2 weeks ago at our first, I think it was him. I was comparing him to J.J. Watt, saying that he's got that ability to come in and play tight end and take a tight end spot away from somebody else on the team if he can do it. He clearly can.
Tight end coach was impressed.
Yes.
I mean,
that was John Lilly, yeah.
Yeah. He was like, maybe he can play tight end. I think, you did call it at the very beginning. I remember you saying that. And then I was kind of like, okay, whatever, maybe not. And then I saw it and I was like, dang, Lyndsey was definitely right on that one.
Keep doing it.
Yeah.
I want it. That would be great.
And what a matchup nightmare, for him to line up as a tight end. I don't think people will be ready for that. I mean, unless they watch Hard Knocks, and then
which
maybe they may be ready.
This is gonna be part of the tape that they watch before they play the team that week before. But I'd be really excited to see that. Lance Kendrick was definitely excited to meet CeCe Sabathia.
Yes,
Yankees pitcher, but he obviously played in Milwaukee for the Brewers when they took us to the. It was 26 years, I think, since we had been to it was a wild card game, and since we'd been to some sort of playoffs, and he got us there. So. Yay! We recognize Brewers.
No, CeCe, speaking of, the playoff drought, CeCe Sabathia did just work the Mariners last night. and they're holding the current record, or in second place for the longest playoff drought. So don't feel so bad about the Brew Crew. Don't feel so bad.
My blue and gold. So we have Kush, who we're sick. Joe is sick of seeing the T-shirts.
Yes, like
The T-shirt man.
Yeah, the freaking tank tops. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they didn't have enough time in the editing room. They had to trim the fat. I thought that would have been great if they did the I love tank tops, thing so much, and then immediately go into I'm gonna make tank tops for all the players, because I thought that was cool. I thought it was really funny to watch Greg Robinson be like, man, I don't want your tank top. Get that.
That's no.
Yeah, get that nonsense out of here. Like he had nothing to do with it.
But then a couple of the guys were really excited about. Goff was super excited about it, and he wanted the string tank. And,
Yeah, give me the smallest one you have. Goff, hit the weight room. Come on, eat a cheeseburger.
Gain some pounds.
Yeah.
And we also saw a little bit of footage from when Jeff Fisher was playing for the Bears, and he was the punt return specialist. And he returned that punt for a touchdown for 88 yards, and he donated $1 per yard of his receiving yards to the Shrine Hospital for Children.
I thought that was cool.
So neat.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And I bet you that he did it throughout the season, too. I think they were saying, because I was like, $88, okay, I could do that. But then throughout the season, especially if he's racking up those punt returns, he probably, put in a good chunk of change, especially back then. Before the inflation to these times, that's a lot of money.
And we already talked a little bit about Singletary, but then we got even more backstory on him and how much the coaches respect him and how some of the players even kind of fear him because he's such a great player. He's the defensive assistant coach. Definitely one of the best linebacker coaches, once again, talking about this defense. They're just a force to be reckoned with. And he's got Ray Lewis and Patrick Willis under his belt, and he's looking for Alec Ogletree to take that next spot. And Willis and Lewis are definitely going to be put into the Hall of Fame at some point.
Hands down.
So to have this kind of coach behind you and backing you, wanting you to do well, definitely pushing for him. He's like a little... he's like the teacher's pet right now. This Alec Ogletree is...
It's time for him to step up. And to see Singletary talk about... Singletary's a guy that's done it. He's been there. He knows what it takes to get the job done, to be in the Hall of Fame at the highest level of competition. So you're going to want to listen to him a little bit more than just, someone off the street that doesn't necessarily know how to play the game or that specific position. And so for him to come in and say, if you do this, you'll be successful. Boy, you better do that, because if you don't, you're just saying, I don't want to listen to you. Those years of experience, all that knowledge, all that wily veteran stuff that you've learned, doesn't matter to me if he doesn't listen and step up and do what he's told to do by one of the greats.
Well, and even later on, you see him and Eric Dickerson talking about how him on the Bears just killed them in that NFC game. What was it? Yeah, the 85 NFC Championship game, 21-0.
Whooped him.
Yeah.
Whooped him so good.
Yeah. So you know that he's a great coach, and I think under Ogletree, under Singletary, he could even be a Pro Bowl choice this year.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's Alex's job to step up if the LA Rams are going to contend for the playoffs. That's one of the toughest divisions in football. They got to go through. They can go through the 49ers, no problem. But they got to go through the Cardinals. They got to go through the Hawks. That's tough. That's 4 games that are up for grabs against, two of the top teams in the NFL. And if Ogletree steps up, their chances are big time in the division. I think it's wide open. And
I know we talked a little bit earlier about the play calling.
Yes.
And we see Goff, the coaches are really pushing for him to come in and play against the ones and play against that first string. And I think that position's open to him, especially since he's acclimating so well with them. And he's really making an effort to move past the mistakes and really, really learn and get it down. And Case Keenum, even working on the play calling, is difficult. He's got his wife helping him.
Yeah. Oh, and I had no idea how. I mean, I had a little bit of an inkling, but I really didn't have any idea of how intense these play calls were until it was funny that they brought this up now, because I was listening to Seattle Sports Radio and they did a contest to win Mariners tickets where the callers would have to call in and repeat a call that is, one of the hosts says. And so I brought one in. Now, just heads up, I could not do it. And this is one I've heard all the time. And they would test the callers. So do you want to try this one out?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, no, I can't do it.
Me.
I can't do it. I failed horribly, and I'm familiar with this. I might not even be able to read it right. So let's just for fun, let's see if you got this one. Okay, I'm gonna go slow. We got red right, tight close, sprint left, GU corner halfback flat on 2.
Red right, sprint close, halfback on 2.
That was pretty close. But it's tough stuff to do. Like they on that radio show, they rattled off like 8 of them.
Oh my gosh!
And it was impossible. And they also interviewed Trayvon Boykin, who's right now going for the backup spot, and he said it's completely different. Like there's trips right, all go. That was his college experience in calling plays.
Sure.
And that's easy. That's 4 words. This is
you see it in all the TV shows. Blue 32, Blue 32.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then in here they're talking about like going like nasty and trips right and like all this kind of stuff. It's impossible. And so props to these quarterbacks. You really do got to be on your game for that.
That is, I just failed, guys.
Hey, I didn't even read it right the first time. I was like blah, 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 GU corner. So we're both not cut out to be quarterbacks in this league.
Just throw the ball.
Yeah.
So we also see a little bit more about Ian Seau and, wanting to play with the ones and teaching him because he had that sack in that first game and then quarterback got up. Ooh. So teaching him the gator tackle and just keep rolling. He's like, he had me rolling 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
Just to make sure you get him down. I mean, and I see it all the time watching Packer games. Aaron Rodgers slipping a player and just getting out of the coverage, and it's insane because those quarterbacks that know how to escape, it's great. And part of it is the offensive line protecting them. Part of it is their skill on their feet, and somebody like Jay Cutler who doesn't have a strong offensive line and just isn't that gifted on his feet like that is gonna go down. And yeah. I like Jay Cutler, but that's just
the way it is. 100%. And and I gotta give Ian a little bit of credit. That was a fantastic play by that quarterback. I mean, like the quarterback didn't give up. He could have really easily sat back down, but he rolled right over Ian's belly. I mean, heck, the Oregon Ducks lost the championship against Auburn and Cam Newton because of a situation where they went to tackle him, and he just wasn't down. He rolled right off of the defensive player. And, so Ian, if you're listening, which I know you are, I'll give you a little bit of props, man. It's not going to happen all the time.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, but don't forget that gator roll.
One of the guys, too, mentioned that Alec Ogletree is the dad of the defense and also the dad of the real world. Him and his little baby being that little poop monster, I called him. I love seeing the players interact with the family and interact with their children. And the same thing with Austin Hill and his little girl, Rylan, and her crying and running the route with him. And just, I love seeing them get to do that. And you want to see him play and you want to see him pass to my daddy.
Yeah.
Oh.
That my ovaries were aching. Those are my man ovaries. That was a really special moment. I thought there were so many great dad moments in this episode. It's just like, oh man, look at that. Football is family.
Well, and they all mentioned moving around a lot, and especially Eric Cush's wife, who they've been around a ton. She said, we got a zoo membership in Houston. We love it, but we're not there anymore. And she goes, hopefully we'll stay here and find a place. But it's crazy how much they can just move within a year.
Yeah, and it makes sense why Greg Robinson was kind of like, nah, get that stuff out of here. Because, Eric Cush isn't exactly like, the number one dude on the team. So for a guy that, is he a bubble player? Is he not? We'll find out in these next couple episodes. But yeah, I could see how Robinson would be like, nah, earn yourself on the team first, and then I'll wear your shirt.
So we get the second game here in Los Angeles, Rams versus Chiefs, which we won. Once again, Greg Williams is not happy with the defense, and it's starting at 0-7. And, running back Spencer Ware getting that first touchdown for Kansas City. But luckily, Los Angeles responded right away with Keenum and Gurley getting that touchdown, making it 7-7. And we had talked earlier that Kimberly had mentioned to his mom, she's like, he's going to play 2 series. And his mom was like, what's 2 series? And had to explain, well, it's going to be a few plays. It's going to be a drive, trying to get down the field and stuff. And we knew Gurley was going to go in and suit up for this first game. And it was great to see him get a touchdown. The fans were obviously excited about this. But take him out, he's done.
Yeah. Get in the end zone. I think that was smart. They gave him a lot of confidence to get in the end zone. Get him out. He knows what he can do. He get a couple reps in. No sense in, like going too crazy with him.
And the same thing, too, even with, they don't want Keenum hurt either.
No.
So he got that second touchdown with Pharaoh Cooper, who I really, really like. I'm excited for him. I think he's an in no matter what.
Oh, yeah. No, he's definitely, I don't think he's a bubble player at all.
Yeah.
I think he's on this squad.
Yep. And so that made it 14-7. We had a couple field goals before the half. And, Goff coming in with the ones and getting tripped and fumbling.
The fumble-aya.
And just not starting out looking strong. But then as the game progressed, pulling up Case Keenum, I saw 2 different statistics, but 4 and 5 for 82 yards and a touchdown. And Goff, what was his record at the end? I have it here in my notes somewhere. Oh, 8 for 12 and 82 yards and a touchdown as well.
Pretty good. Take the fumble out of the equation. That was a turf monster. You can't, who knows? Mm-hmm. It was pretty good.
And I had mentioned earlier that Westbrook kind of jinxed himself with this talk of, being not ever working at Toys R Us again and then getting that cheap hit. It was a cheap shot.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised there wasn't some kind of, all-out brawl. I mean, not brawl, but at least a scrum after it went down. I mean, the coaches were just so heated.
Oh, Waffle was pissed. They all were. I mean, you saw Jeff Fisher just doing the stank eye and Waffle actually saying what everyone else is thinking, which sometimes you just need somebody to verbalize it. But this guy's also trying to make the team.
Yeah.
He's trying to secure a spot. The problem is he's coming, the fact that Waffle was like, you shouldn't even be playing. I don't know if that's in regards to the 2014 battery incident outside the strip club that he was involved in.
Oh.
Or if it's... or if he's
the Reed character?
Ja Reed.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was that, but I mean, he's a bubble player as well. So, but it was a dirty hit, and you see him standing right there overlooking the guy, and it's almost one of those things where if you did something bad, like I used to get so mad at Dominican Sue because when he'd play against the Packers, he'd try and hurt Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, get away. I don't want to see you on the field right now near my quarterback or near whoever you stepped on.
Yeah, or at least if you're going to be near the man, take a knee.
Yeah.
Show a little respect. Mm-hmm. Like, this is football is a game to you and I, but it's their livelihood. Like if one of those players goes down with an injury, then they're taking food off of the table for their children and their wives. And that is a whole different level. You start taking things from their family, and those players are going to get really, really pissed. Mm-hmm. And
I feel the same way with baseball in that aspect. Mm-hmm. When pitchers purposely throw.
Yeah.
Because this is someone's husband. This is someone's son.
Yeah, and if you can't play next week, you're missing out on your game check, and that game check
is So it's when you see those cheap shots and those dirty shots, and actually, I went to the NFL Network and had a little tour yesterday. A good friend of mine brought me in, so I was able to get into one of the sound stages, and it is overwhelming and amazing all at the same time. I think my mouth just dropped, and I did a circle and looked around because it was just the neatest thing to just see. I was watching ESPN2 earlier about fantasy football, and here I am staring at the desk, and I'm like,
that's awesome.
Oh my God, this is where you guys were just talking about that about. It's crazy. But we ended up walking into a class that they were teaching, and they were having a conversation about hits. And they showed a hit on a guy where he lowered the helmet. And in slow-mo, you see the whole guy's body kind of do one of these things. Saying, luckily, the guy ended up being okay. The guy who lowered his helmet actually ended up breaking the forearm of another player because he came in low.
The friendly fire.
Yeah. So he ended up getting hurt, but they're like, this is completely unacceptable. So I don't know what the class was. We weren't supposed to be in there. as I just told all of you guys. Now you all know. But being at the NFL Network was incredible. And these hits that are these, that get taken down and noticed for review, they're doing the same thing for good hits too. And they're putting those out there saying, this is a good hit. This is what you guys want to be teaching your players as well.
Yeah.
So
it's really interesting about Pete Carroll he does a big video series about tackling and how he's invaded this tackling form, and he's been showcasing it to a lot of different schools around the country, just to kind of, so this is how you can tackle and keep yourself and the player you're tackling from getting really badly injured. So I think that type of stuff and that awareness and the continued focus on health and safety, I think, is really important.
well, that's one of the few good things that he's done then.
Yeah.
Obviously not a huge fan of Pete Carroll over here. All right, let's get back to the game. Westbrook actually still wanted to play after he got hurt. He said he hit his thigh. It wasn't actually his knee, which was good.
Yeah.
So I thought it was great too, but he actually wanted to get back in there. Like, let's just check you out first, pal. Seau's sister was there cheering for him. Cush's kids are cheering. Hill's not getting the targets. Ryland's sitting there wanting her dad to get those targets. And then we once again get a little bit more yelling.
Yep. Yes, we do.
Chubb. Chubb, my friend, listen when you are being spoken to.
Yeah.
Yes, that was, woof, Williams was in. You heard me. Don't let me yell your name 3 times and then come over. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's bad news. I mean, he's playing that position on linebacking, in the linebacking group, that he needs to be calling out all those coverages and be reading that offensive line. And the DC might know what's going on, might have a little something to tell him, and if he doesn't know it's being communicated, that's bad news. So, Chubb, you better do your job.
Get it together.
Yeah.
Then the last thing we see is Goff throwing that touchdown pass to Brown, the running back, making it 21-20, and they win the game.
Win. That's the game. That was great.
Back again.
That's a lot of heart for them to, go in and do that, and it shows that, they have a nice deep team, and they're not going to give up. So we'll see what happens when they're not at home, though.
Let's get into some predictions, since next week we're going to be in Denver for the 3rd preseason game.
Your AFTERBUZZ TV predictions.
First thing in our little teaser we get is once again another defensive and offensive fight. We know these guys don't get along during practice. They're not supposed to get along during practice. They're playing against each other. When they're on the field playing against Denver, they can be friendly because they're rooting for the same thing. But when they're in practice, they don't practice together, and they practice together, but they on their own are doing separate things because they're keeping them separate.
Oh yeah, because if a defensive player punks some offensive lineman and makes him look bad, that's not going to be good for his case to make the team. So the offensive player is going to get pissed off. He's going to play extra hard, and it's just going to go back and forth. So the fact that they actually go against the Broncos this time and can unleash all of that frustration, it's going to be good for the team.
And we've got the bubble, the players in the bubble, like Norman Nelson. I have one Nelson in my life, and that's Jordy. Sorry, I keep calling him Norman, but that's because I only need one Nelson in my life, and that's Jordy for the Packers. Nelson Spruce, coming off of his injury, is definitely on the bubble. Do you think he's going to get cut this week, or do you think they're going to wait it out a little bit?
After what he flashed in that game, I think they're going to give him. I think that they'll give him another cut. Yeah, they'll give him another opportunity to play. They need to see more. They need to see if he can, string another game like that together, and it wasn't an outlier. Now, if he does it, if he plays in the next game and it's just not the same, then we're talking a whole different story. But I think that he flashed enough to give him a little bit of a pass on.
Leeway.
Yeah, exactly. But come back, be ready for this next game. You got to be available, because if you're not,
they're cutting from 90 to 75. And we're going to see those. We'll see that phone call and the office, the whole cutting of the players next week when we start making those cuts. So that always makes me sad.
Yeah, it is.
As much as I know it's circle of life, circle of the football life, it still makes me sad. Yeah, bummed out for them.
It is, and I really hope that a lot of these players that are doing good, like if Spruce does, if he unfortunately gets cut from the Rams, and hopefully he flashed enough to make it onto another squad, or maybe clear the waivers and then go back onto the Rams practice squad, because he sure flashed a lot, and it was pretty fun to see him. Yeah.
And yeah, we've got them in Denver playing against the defending Super Bowl champs. I mean, what are you expecting? Are we expecting a close game? Are we just expecting a good game? Do you think we're going to get Mannion back in at quarterback? Do you think...
I do think Sean Mannion is going to... I think he'll play a fair amount but at the same time, I feel like this is the dress rehearsal for the offense and the defense, you know? So for them, they want to put in those ones as long as they possibly can without getting anybody hurt, just to have them to be ready. And then that fourth preseason game is for all those last minute bubble players and for Sean to come in and get that arm going and let those other players rest a little bit. So I think he'll play a little bit, but not as much as, we might originally expect.
I'd love to say that the Rams are going to go in there and rally and win this game against Denver. I can't 100% put stock in that just because...
Mile High is a real tough place to play. Mm-hmm. I mean, even though this is preseason, like now that the cuts are coming, these guys are playing for food on the table, and that's a pretty good motivator.
And they had their home and their family in Los Angeles. And it's not saying that some of the family members are going to travel or anything like that, but when you've got your city behind you, mm-hmm. It's a totally different thing moving on the road in this preseason with the team still figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
Against the defending Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, with one of the stoutest defenses around, too. I mean, it's going to be like the Rams, I think, will go in. Their defense is going to go in with a chip in their shoulder, and say, let's do this. Let's show them that the Broncos aren't the only defense out there we're talking about.
Yeah. And we close the show with a little rewatch of the two wide recievers flipping their go-kart. Right?
Jeez, yeah,
over.
Kenny Britt and who was it the other?
Quick? Was it Quick and Britt?
Mm-hmm.
Quick didn't even have a great game.
No, he's a bubble player too, I feel like.
Yeah, at this point, I definitely think he is too. Mm-hmm. All right, guys, I think that gets us all covered up on this episode of Hard Knocks. Joe, where can people talk to you for the next week until we have our back here?
You guys can talk to me at JoJo Doyle. You need to find Robert Quinn and Johnny Hecker and Aaron Donald and all these guys, Farrell Cooper. Put them in next week's episode, you guys. Those are the people I want to see. So you know where to find me. I hope I can find them on the next episode.
This is Lyndsey here. You guys can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Lyndsey Wegner. That's LYNDSEY WEGNER, or my blog, lyndseywegner.blogspot.com. Can't wait to see this next week's game against Denver. It's going to be a great one. We'll see you guys next week.
Time for the cuts.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.